Hello, welcome to Sound and Fury Book Reviews. As usual, I am Tina. Today I'm doing a book review of The Unveiling by Quan Barry. This is a book that's coming out October 14th, 2025. It's from Grove Press. It's a literary horror. I received this arc from NetGalley in exchange for a fair review. If you are fond of the unreliable narrator trope, survival horror, ghost stories, and a bit of literary flair, this is the book for you. What is it about? Stryker isn't entirely sure she should be on this luxury Antarctic cruise. A black film scout, her mission is to photograph potential locations for a big-budget movie about Ernest Shackleton's doomed expedition. Along the way, she finds pride of cautious amusement in the behavior of both the native wildlife and the group of wealthy, mostly white tourists who have chosen to spend Christmas on the Weddell Sea. But when a kayaking excursion goes horribly wrong, Stryker and a group of survivors become stranded on a remote island along the Antarctic Peninsula, a desolate setting complete with boiling geothermal vents and vicious birds. Soon the hostile environment will show each survivor their true face, and as the polar ice thaws in the unseasonable warmth, the group's secrets, prejudices, and inner demons will also merge, including revelations from Stryker's past that could irrevocably shatter her world. So, it took me about 5% of a novel to really kind of get into it. Like, at first I was like, I don't know about this. But once I kind of got about maybe, 20 pages in, I was like, no, I'm feeling this book. I was absolutely hooked by this bonkers novel that is a mix of contemplative, horrific, and dare I say, funny stuff. The humor might not be there for everyone, but I caught myself like snorting a bunch of places, being like, what? Kind of thing. Like, it's more kind of what some people say and some kind of like asides that Stryker has that are amusing. It's not like any of the situations really are amusing, because they are not. The book has a lot of strengths. The setting is one. I haven't read a book set in Antarctica before, and the way the book describes the landscape, the animals, the sheer isolating nature of the place is really, really immersive. This book would not have worked without this setting. Along with the survival aspects, we're also given a historical mystery that aligns with what's going on in the present, which I found really, really cool. I love historical fiction horror, so that was a pleasant surprise for me to have a little bit of that added in. It also gave a sort of timelessness to the story that circled back well with the book's themes. The characters are awesome, and we have a great deal of tension arising, but also kind of the humor between their interactions. I'll get to Stryker in a moment, but the Grand Dame, as Stryker calls her, was a wonderful character. I loved her. She's just this older lady who's very blunt. The dynamics between her, Stryker, her husband, and the other characters are really compelling, and they work really well, kind of bouncing off one another, because none of them are who Stryker assumes they are, and when they tell her who they are, sometimes it's unclear if they're lying. So you have a lot of characters who they don't know one another for the most part. We don't get to know them very well. We just see them from Stryker's perspective, and we have to kind of make our own assumptions about them based on kind of who she sees them as, but those aren't always correct, and I thought that was really, really well done. We also can't trust Stryker. She's an extremely unreliable narrator, and half the time I wondered if what was happening was even going on. This is where most of the tension comes from. Stryker is often missing key information, and we aren't sure whether we can believe what she sees even. It leaves you off balance in a great way. Now, this book is not for everyone. Stryker is abrasive. I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't sound insensitive coming from a person of my background, but Stryker seems really obsessed with race. As a person who never had to deal with that, clearly, given my skin, I tried really hard to keep an open mind and see things from her perspective, and it ends up not being unfounded why she is so focused on this, as we learn from her memories of growing up in a very white neighborhood as the only person of color, and this really kind of shaped her, and so it leaves her with this chip on her shoulder that makes sense, and so it was actually really, really interesting and a great way to show why a person of color would kind of be hesitant in situations where they're the only person of color because of the situation that she's lived through. And I thought that was really, really, really well done and very eye-opening from a white perspective to see that, because I find a lot of times in books, it's often like people soften that if a person of color is being critical because of the amount of, white readers and things like that. And this book doesn't do that. And I actually thought that was really, really, really good. Anyway, that as well. There's other facets to her personality, and one is the reason that she's on a location film scout is because she's rather misanthropic, but she's also very much like into connecting with people, though she's very specific about who she connects with. Her journey in this story is both a circle and a spiral. It's really well done. I have a spoiler section I'm going to talk about kind of at the end where I get into her a little bit more. Anyway, so this book does not hold your hand. There are sections that just kind of end, and then we kind of jump scenes without filling in the gaps between, at least right away. And it's got an almost kind of stream of consciousness flow to it. It's deliberately befuddling, and there were parts I had to reread to make sure I understood what happened. I personally love this sort of thing, though, so it totally worked for me. This is not a book where you understand why. It's more about the who or the what if. You think you have it figured out, and then something batshit crazy happens that changes your thoughts entirely. There's weird stuff peppered throughout. The bird, those symbols, what the heck? There are mysteries within mysteries that are not explained outright. And the people are deliberately obtuse about what they know. It's fascinating. I loved it because I was never confused in the fact that I didn't understand what was going on, but I was kind of like, wait, is this happening? If that makes sense. Now, while I honestly could not put this book down, I found the ending, while exciting, was a little reductive. I'm going to get into that more in the spoilers, but overall, though, despite a lot of the 2-star reviews it's getting on Goodreads, this was a 5-star read for me. It's not my favorite book of the month, but it might be second or third. In truth, I thought it was brilliant. And the balance of, what the F is going on, horror, the horror, the setting, the characters worked really, really well for me. I was never bored. I was not confused. I was curious. I was intrigued. And I read this way later into the night than I should have. So thank you to Nick Alley and the publisher for the e-arc. I really appreciate it. I'm just going to jump into a couple spoilers here that I want to talk about because I just want to talk about them. First of all, this book states very near the start that Stryker's greatest fear is going insane, and it's clear that this is what happens to her in the book. It's mentioned once in passing, as I said, like on page 30 or something, but then it comes full circle because she pretty much does kind of go insane. I thought that was really well done. I love when books do that, when they're kind of, it's almost like not really a Chekhov's gun, but it's when it references something at the start. There's this fantasy book I read where everyone keeps calling this guy a secret wizard. This sounds so stupid, but he's like, I'm not a secret wizard. Why is everyone accusing me of this? And then at the end of the book, it's revealed that he didn't know this, but he actually ends up being a secret wizard. I thought that, that kind of thing was what was happening in this book as well. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way. And I thought that was really, really fun. Okay, so the thing I want to talk about it being reductive. Okay, so we have the Grand Dame and the baby she put up for adoption. We realize this, even though it had nothing to do with the rest of the story. We have Stryker and her sister's stillborn secret baby. And then Anders and their mom's reconciliation. And then the historical woman's baby that the men ate, right? Right? Is that what we're supposed to assume happened? Anyway, all of these things tied in together, given they're all about babies. But I don't know. It just felt like every single woman has a baby issue. I found it sort of reductive and a bit too coincidental. But then again, one of the major things that happens to Stryker, like her major kind of almost character arc, is that she realizes how much her parents did indeed love her. How they were, to quote from the book, fighting for us behind our backs, putting on a brave face because they wanted us to believe we were just like everyone else. This really ties into the motherhood theme, I guess. So maybe I'm convincing myself it's not reductive. I guess I just see so many books where the big trauma is something to do with the loss of a child, which as a mother myself, is understandable, but we see it so much that it becomes kind of like a trope. And sometimes that's like the only thing that a woman character does is like mourn her children. And I find that frustrating because we talk about how women, women worry about losing their personality when they have babies, and everyone's like, no, you don't have to do that. But then we have books where a woman's whole character is being a mother. And so I guess this isn't really the case in this book. It's not really the case in this book. Okay. I'm talking in circles. But I'm going to leave this in. I'm not going to edit it out because I think it's interesting. Anyway, if you've read this book, let me know in the comments if you had this thought or if I'm completely off my rocker here. A rocker, baby reference, right? Because rocking chair. Okay, I'm done. Anyway, I really liked this book. Bye.